Welcome to Dr. Balaga's God Knowledge Doc podcast, your quick dive into the latest medical breakthroughs to keep you ahead of the curve. Let's get started. Today is July 1st, 2025. This video is prompted by an email on a case which we received this morning from my colleague Dr. Gary Haas, Professor of Cardiology, on the mysterious troponin rise, the case of the macrotroponin. Cardiac troponin is a key marker for myocardial infarction, but it can be elevated in other conditions. Rarely, persistently high levels may result from macrotroponin, a complex of troponin bound to immunoglobulin G without cardiac injury. Dr. Haas said in the email, I recently managed a patient on the inpatient service who had been admitted on multiple occasions, primarily for low-level positive high-sensitivity troponins. Review of the troponins were in 200 to 300 range repeatedly, despite no obvious clinical correlation. He then found a case report in the European Heart Journal, and he discussed this with Dr. Ji Lee in pathology, and she tested for macrotroponin. Troponin binding to endogenous antibodies, usually IgG, causes false positive elevation. And she documented this was a fact in this case, in this particular patient. While it's not common, he says, it's obviously important to identify in those patients with persistently elevated troponin in the absence of clinical or cardiac explanation. He says, if you identify such a patient, please contact Dr. Lee in Biochemistry with the patient's consent, and the appropriate testing to exclude macrotroponin will be performed. The case report he brought to my attention was in European Heart Journal, Case Reports 2020, titled False Positive Troponin Elevation Due to an Immunoglobulin G Cardiac Troponin T Complex, a case report. In that case report, it was a 53-year-old male with diabetes and hypertension who presented with chest pain and consistently elevated troponin T levels, but normal ECG, normal echo, angiogram, and MRI. Final diagnosis, macrotroponin T, confirmed via biochemistry and immunological methods. Very similar to the case Dr. Haas brought to our attention. Detecting the deception, methods and learnings, normal renal and cardiac function, persistent troponin T elevation without troponin I elevation, or persistent high sensitivity troponin levels at low levels, and this can be confirmed that it's false positive or confirmed it's macrotroponin using SDS-PAGE and immunoblotting. The key takeaway is always correlate troponin with the clinical picture. Consider macrotroponin and persistently elevated troponin without clinical or imaging evidence of myocardial damage. Collaborate with biochemistry for clarification. Don't just brush it off saying it's a troponin leak. What is macrotroponin? A complex found between cardiac troponin and immunoglobulin, usually IgG, which interferes with troponin assays and can give falsely elevated troponin levels. How is macrotroponin diagnosed? By demonstrating discordance between troponin T and troponin I, and using polyethylene glycol precipitation, SDS-PAGE, and immunoblotting to confirm the presence of troponin IgG complex. And this is true in the case in the European Heart Journal. Why is it clinically important? It can prevent misdiagnosis of acute coronary syndrome and avoid unnecessary interventions like angiography. What's unique about this case? It's documented that one of the earliest confirmed cases of macrotroponin T in a clinical setting with biochemical proof, and in Dr. Haas's case, it's a confirmed case of macrotroponin high sensitivity troponins. What should the clinician do if the troponins don't match the clinical picture? Reassess the diagnosis, repeat troponin with alternative assays, consult biochemistry to rule out analytical interference. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with your colleagues. When we change how we see disease, we change how we shape lives. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep seeking wisdom. Podcast brought to you by Master MedFacts at mastermedfacts.com.